Alright, welcome guys. So there's been a bunch of new updates with Superior over the last couple of weeks and months, and we're going to go through all of them on this video. So we've got a lot of new powers out. We'll showcase a couple of them in this run, and we've also got a new timeline out, or version of Earth. So this new timeline is Chaos Mode, so you have to defeat Growth to unlock it, and there's 12 missions in this instead of the usual 9, and everything's going to have extra health, extra damage. You'll get better snacks and better rewards at the end, and there'll be some extra mutators as well. So it's kind of like a hardcore mode, if you will, with more rewards. So it's going to be a little bit longer. You'll end up accumulating a ton of powers. So you'll see we're going to have we're going to be quite overpowered by the end with a ton of different power combos. Like I said, I'll showcase some of the new powers, and there's also a new mission which will come up in this run. So you can see me and Chuck are both playing Nomad. Nomad's quite good at the moment, quite overpowered, and she's fun to play as well. So we're both keeping our lasers out. I've gone pretty much all fire. I'm trying to get most of the fire ability, so I've got fire jump that I'm relying on, whereas Chuck's gone Volt. So he's got his Volt jump, which is firing out his discs, and I think his powers are doing extra shock damage, I think on explosion, or you'll see some of his Volt discs that he throws out ends up just clearing out all the enemies with a heap of shock damage. On this game mode, or this timeline, the other thing I forgot to mention, so there was 12 missions, but it's also all random, so you could have boss fights, like 2 different boss fights in a row. The bosses are going to be random, they'll come up at different times. So you can see we've only killed, we had a boss fight on the second mission, and then we haven't had one since for a couple. You can end up with Growth at the end, Revolt, or even Brute Force. The reason we're going to end up with so many powers is because obviously we've got extra juice per mission, so we'll get a juice per mission, but there's extra missions, and then we'll get a ton of pickups on the way as well. So to unlock these new abilities, you're going to have to fight the new boss, which is on the Revolt timeline, which I haven't actually mentioned. There's a new boss as well, which is a completely new boss. So a lot of these boss fights have been combinations of already existing bosses, so you'll see a couple of those will verse double backbone, backbone wind up, but there's a completely new boss. Essentially these kind of twins that swap forms throughout. They're kind of like a duo that work together. It's a really unique fight, but it is on their Revolt run, and you'll have new objectives that you have to complete with different combinations of powers while killing that boss, that new boss fight. And then you'll unlock these duo powers, which you'll see a couple of them during this run. Some of the examples are, let's say you have, which actually I think this one Chuck does get, when you have fire and ice damage inflicted on the enemy at the same time. So for example, your precision weapons might be doing fire damage and also ice damage. That will result in an explosion, and you'll see that with Chuck on some of his abilities, because he ends up applying fire and ice, I think, through explosions, and then that causes even more explosions. So that's just one example. Another example would be your frost abilities. Anything inflicted with frost will take shock damage. If you're shooting through a force field, will also do shock damage. I think there's one that doubles your max Xenos, so you can end up with a whole heap of Xenos, and then your Xenos also do shock damage or something like that. But there is a lot of them, and they take a lot to unlock. It'd be interesting to see if they do a challenge run with this new Chaos Mode at some point, because I think this Chaos Mode kind of unlocks a lot of unique, like the powers end up mattering a lot, and you actually begin to, usually with Nomad you tend to rely on your orbital strike quite a lot, but you just become so overpowered with powers, with your superpowers on this run, that I actually found we're probably relying less on the orbital strike and more on our abilities. So our second or third boss, we've got the wind up and backbone combo, and we end up kind of nuking both bosses at the same time. If you want to do this more strategically, I often go kill wind up first and just ignore backbone. That way you're not popping the extra adds, like pushing them both to phase 2 at the same time with all these extra adds, and you can just kind of deal with wind up and not let wind ups, adds and bombs accumulate too much. But some people will kill backbone first and use that the drops and the extra weapons from backbone to kill wind up. And a lot of these double bosses, the duo bosses, you're getting 2 sets of loot as well, so it's a lot of juice and a lot of powers and a lot of money as well. You can essentially afford anything you want from the chaos. Alright, so this is Jarhead. This is the new mission. We take the high ground here, and essentially you just come into range of Jarhead and a heap of enemies start coming at you. So I think you'll end up with 3 waves. You'll clear out the enemies, and eventually you'll get the juice from completing the mission. We take the high ground here, and we actually have I think 3 or 4 heartburns come at us, but our orbital strikes are so powerful at this stage. Because if you didn't know, the orbital strikes, when you get enough talent points, it actually scales with power damage. And on this run, we've got a heap of power damage pickup. So not only our superpowers are scaling with power, but our orbital strikes are as well, and they just run through the heartburns. But if we were playing something like the Ronins or the Nomads, the Murmurs, this mission with all those heartburns might be a lot more difficult. The other thing with this mission is when you're in relatively close proximity to Jarhead, your overdrive will charge automatically, so you get a lot of overdrives throughout this mission. Alright, you can see here I've got Jack of all trades, which is an extra 42% extra damage because I've got so many powers. Extra reload time again because I've got so many powers, and you can see we've got well over 500 credits already. I've got so many powers at this stage that I'm just taking pretty much anything. I get Shock Dash just for the extra move speed. I pretty much got everything I want. I am going after Heat Vision. I think Chuck ends up getting Heat Vision. Heat Vision's still, I think, the best weapon you can get in the game, especially on Nomad. So we get Overmind here, which is the first time I've fought him on, where are we, off Earth, I think, or something like that. So it's pretty cool. You end up getting to fight these bosses in different environments, and I think this is the fourth. I think we end up fighting maybe 5 bosses. If you haven't played in a while, possibly haven't seen the new weapons. There's a ton of new weapons as well. There's the Stinger, Auto Pistol. Stinger is kind of like a, I don't know if you ever played Halo, it's kind of like a, I guess the Stinger, I think it was actually called the Stinger in Halo. But it's explosive charges that dig into the enemy and then eventually explode, which is quite fun if you get the ice spikes and lava on explosions. So we end up getting Backbone right at the end of one of our missions, or right at the end of the timeline, so it's pretty interesting, pretty easy boss. Chuck puts down 2 of his rocket turrets and his heat vision, and I basically just spectate. So you can see it's all quite random. You can get the low level bosses right at the end or the high level bosses at the start. You can see there how many abilities I end up with by the end of this run, and we have the final boss now. So we end up getting Revolt. Chuck takes the high ground on the right, and I take the high ground on the left. We throw our turrets down. It's fairly easy from here, especially with the high ground. We get our lasers, orbital strikes. I've got the railgun, he's got the heat vision. There's pretty easy stuff from here as well. The other update that's come out is they've changed the growth boss fight, so the very final boss on the hardest mode, he now kind of spawns more ads, and the interaction with the fire, his laser vision and everything, it's a lot better. You'll see when you get to it. It's not necessarily, well, it probably is a little bit harder, but it's overall good improvements. On the Steam version of Superior Vengeance, I think it's called, they've actually released Renegade. He's kind of like a close combat tank character. So hopefully that'll be coming soon to the Gala version of the game, which is just called Superior, I'm pretty sure. But I think they're probably just waiting to sort out the integration with Gala Chain, and potentially what they're going to do with Play to Earn, and how they're probably trying to optimize any sales they're going to do of any NFT releases with the new characters in the future. Sorting out the contracts with Gala and whatnot, but hopefully they'll implement Play to Earn at some point fairly soon. I'm hoping, even if they just do a small amount of Gala for the leaderboard every week or every fortnight. I don't think the community necessarily needs huge rewards. It's just something to make the leaderboard a little bit more interesting. Another way to accumulate a little bit of Gala, and either spend that on other NFTs or speculate on it. But I think just that little bit of reward, it doesn't need to be huge. Obviously this isn't a game that has a lot of microtransactions, so it's not accumulating as much money that they can do a rev share with the Play to Earn, like as compared to Champions Arena and Dragon Strike and other games like that. But yeah, like I said, I don't think the community necessarily needs a ton of rewards. It would just be nice to have some kind of Play to Earn with the challenge run. I think it just adds that little bit of extra motivation and excitement over the leaderboard. But hopefully we'll find out something soon, and let me know down below, what do you think about the updates? What do you think about potential Play to Earn mechanism that they should implement? And if you enjoyed this, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.